Hey, happy Friday. This week, even investors started to think that maybe tech giants are spending a little bit too much money on AI, and then Apple Intelligence kind of launched, but then also kind of didn't, and also a new friend came to town. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Nebula. Okay, for my first story of the week, it is earnings season, and the one thing that every tech giant seems to have in common is that they're spending an ungodly amount of money on AI infrastructure with no clear plan for how to make money from it in the future. Starting with Microsoft, the company disclosed spending $19 billion on capital expenditures last quarter, most of which went to building the infrastructure to run AI applications. And Satya Nadella said that he actually expects this to keep increasing in the future. $19 billion a quarter. That is such a ridiculous amount of money for one company to spend on basically just AI infrastructure. I mean, just for comparison, that is basically the equivalent of Sony's entire revenue. Like, the company that makes the most successful game console, has a giant movie studio, is the largest maker of camera sensors in the world, has a huge music business, etc., etc. That altogether is basically as much as Microsoft is spending on just AI data centers. And Microsoft actually says that it is capacity constrained on AI, saying that, quote, as soon as we get capacity available to sell, we are selling it. In other words, there's simply not enough chips, but if there were, Microsoft would want to spend even more. To add to this insanity, Meta now expects to spend $37 to $40 billion in their 2024 year, and they say that Llama 4 will likely need around 10 times more compute to train than Llama 3.1 did, and just for good measure, Alphabet's capex in Q2 also exploded to $13 billion, mostly on data centers for hungry AI. I think by now this might be the biggest tech spending frenzy that we've ever seen. Like, I can't think of a single other thing where private companies have spent so much money in such a short time on a single thing. And the funny thing is that when the CEOs are asked of how they're going to make the money back in the future, the answers are not very clear. On a podcast, Zuckerberg said that, quote, the downside of being behind is that you're out of position for the most important technology for the next 10 to 15 years. And meanwhile, Sundar Pichai said last week that, quote, when we go through a curve like this, the risk of underinvesting is dramatically greater than the risk of overinvesting. They're saying that right now, nobody really knows how the money is going to be made yet, but if the time comes when finally the money taps will be turned on from AI, they want to be in a position where they have their own data centers and their own infrastructure and own platforms instead of having to rely on somebody else's, which is a really aggressive hedge against the future that might or might not happen. The biggest contract that we've heard of so far is TikTok paying Microsoft $20 million per month to use OpenAI's models, which I guess is something, but it's definitely not comparable to the potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in investment that these companies are doing. That said, Jensen Huang and Mark Zuckerberg did meet and they swapped leather jackets, so I guess everything is fine. Okay, for my second story of the week, Apple Intelligence is finally here, except it's kind of not. The rollout has started cautiously in preview on iPhones with a waitlist in place, along with the need to be part of the iOS 18.1 beta. Having an iOS 18.1 version for the AI features probably signifies that they're not going to be shipping with iOS 18, which is what the new iPhones are presumably going to be shipping with, so that's going to be a little bit of an awkward conversation at launch. Feels like every AI feature is coming soon. Anyway, testers got many of the basic features like a smarter Siri, as well as writing tools, AI-generated summaries for mail, messages, voicemail, and more in preview, and particularly pretty are the animations that Apple seems to have made for photos, where Apple Intelligence lets you describe a video that you want to be created from your own media. But perhaps even more interesting are the features that have not launched yet. So there's no ChatGPT integration, no third-party app integrations, no on-screen awareness, no image generation, etc. So basically none of the really big features that we're actually kind of hyped about. I mean, given how badly their competitors seem to have messed up their launches, I guess being cautious does make sense. But this is the softest of soft launches so far. Okay, for my third story of the week, Friend is here, and it's probably the funniest product launch that I've seen in a very long time. So this week, an AI pendant was announced, which is a round glowing orb that is imagined to be worn around your neck or clipped onto clothes or accessories. It has a built-in microphone that can either record ambiently or you can talk to it directly, and then it will give you answers or just random fun messages by pretending to text your phone. The team behind this product raised $2.5 million and then promptly went on to spend $1.8 million of those on buying the friend.com domain, which is just very questionable on so many levels. Funnily enough, Avi Schiffman, the founder, initially conceptualized the device as a wearable mom, which is slightly less cool than a friend, I guess, and they also sold the predecessor under the name Tab. But even more funny is that another dude called Nick Shevchenko released a horrifyingly bad rap diss track accusing Avi of stealing his idea and his name, which Avi, in return, also accuses him of, so everything is going absolutely great. I mean, I don't even care if any of these devices are good or not. I just feel like AI devices and this like AI bubble is the new crypto bubble. Like all the grifters and assholes are just like really attracted to it. And just so unattractive in my opinion. Anyway, moving on to our release monitor, we start with the Nothing Phone 2A Plus. It has a new MediaTek Dimensity chip, which makes it a little bit more powerful than its predecessor, so this is a mild spec bump. And talking of phones, Chinese car maker Neo has somehow already released their second phone called the Neo Phone 2. The predecessor came out in September last year, so they're really leaning into this, and the new model has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip and dedicated car features, which I guess is okay. And our last new release this week is a new exoskeleton thingy from Google X Labs attaching to special hiking pants from Arc'teryx. They supposedly offload 30 pounds or just 14 kilos from your knees, although at $4,500 with a battery that only lasts 3 hours, I have a pretty hard time understanding why people are taking this seriously. Anyway, moving on to the brief, Qualcomm promised that Snapdragon X PCs will cost as little as $700 next year. Right now you pay about $1,000 or more for these devices, so that would be pretty great for competition. And talking of the competition, the new Zen 5 laptop chips from AMD also launched this week, and loads of reviewers are raving about it too. And while that's happening, we've also just learned that Intel's big Lunar Lake chips are launching in just a few weeks with really big promises of their own. It really feels like we have proper three-way competition for Windows laptops again, which we haven't had for so long, and we can probably actually thank Apple and to some degree Qualcomm for this. They've really kicked some ass and now everyone is really trying. Anyway, talking of promises, Samsung this week also promised that, quote, for camera and display specs in particular, the S25 at launch will have top-of-the-line upgrades. Samsung hasn't had any major upgrades in their S-series cameras in quite a while, so I really hope that that's true. Next, we got two really nice leaks. First, Sony Dixon has showed off an actually black iPhone 16 Pro Max leak, which is really pretty. And second, the Google Pixel Watch 3 is expected to come in 2 sizes now instead of 1, along with the expected host of upgrades. Now, talking of Google, the company has also just announced that Chrome will get access to Google Lens, starting with desktop users in the US. This feature looks a whole lot like Circle to Search did on phones, and it looks like an actually useful AI feature for once. Fun fact, Samsung Germany told us that Circle to Search was by far their most popular AI feature on their phones, so I guess Google really wants to bring this everywhere. And meanwhile, the opposite seems to be true of Meta's terrible celebrity chatbots, which have been so unpopular that after just 10 months, they're already getting cancelled. Say goodbye to your long-standing dream of talking to a cartoon version of Paris Hilton. I know, this is a sad day, but I think you can pull through. Anyway, in good news, Microsoft has announced that it will remove ads from Skype, ensuring a smoother, decluttered, and more enjoyable user experience apparently, which is very welcome indeed. And you know what? I challenge you, Microsoft. Do Windows next. Do Outlook next. Can you imagine how crazy that would be? And meanwhile, crashing back down to reality, Apple is apparently now rumored to join other streaming companies and offer an ad-supported plan for Apple TV Plus, including, quote, tracking ads. Ouch. One report said that Apple TV Plus was just 0.2% of US viewing on smart TVs in June, so ad-supported tiers might be needed to help them reach a broader market. Oh well, if you hate that even on platforms where you pay, your videos get interrupted by ads and all kinds of nonsense, then I have good news for you. It's called Nebula News. Nebula News is a dedicated space inside Nebula to catch up with everything newsworthy that is happening around the world with no distractions, no ads, and only from creators who've actually been vetted. The Friday Checkout is a part of it. Morning Brew has recently joined, bringing all of their shows to Nebula. We have dedicated news-focused original series like War Room. The team behind TLDR News is curating the whole thing, and it's just a fantastic way to stay up to date with news that you can actually trust and without getting bombarded by ads or unnecessary junk. I really enjoy having a platform that only hosts really smart and thoughtful content, and Nebula is of course our very own video streaming service built and owned by educational creators, which hosts Nebula Originals, early access content, and more. Oh, and now at the end of every Nebula video, I actually also record a little Q&A session, so Nebula viewers can actually ask me questions and they get their answers right there. It's nice. Signing up really helps to support our work directly, and if you choose my link in the description, you'll also get an extra discount. My link brings the cost down to just $30 a year. Mind you, that is for a full year, not a month. And if you don't like to have an ongoing subscription, you can instead also opt for a lifetime membership. So check it out at go.nebula.tv/TFC. Happy browsing, and I'll see you next Friday.